through the practice of yoga, you're actually avoiding the suffering that is yet to come, outcomes, desires, our emotions. And that is the true purpose of yoga. Part of brain called hippocampus, it helps us in learning and memory. You cannot have blue light at least 2 hours before you sleep. Pregnancy made me realize what yoga can really do to a person. The digestive fire is working, so let it do its work.
Welcome to Mojo Talks, where we explore the world through stories. I'm Mayur Channagere, visual storyteller and your host. Welcome back to Mojo Talks with Mayur Channagere. In the last episode with Dr. Manasa, we spoke about her practice, how she started her journey, but in this episode, we will deep dive into what it means to be a spiritual being, to be a person who is more aware, and how yoga is beyond the physical aspect. Dr. Manasa, thanks for doing this and welcome back to this episode. Manasa ji, just going back to what you had earlier shared about your routine and that you don't really share about it. You haven't shared about it much. But there's also a school of thought that you should not overshare, right? Why?
Hatha Yoga Pradipika, okay, there is a text on Hatha Yoga called Hatha Yoga Pradipika, where Yogi Swatmarama beautifully puts it. He says, Hatha Yoga Vidya Param Gopyam, that you need to keep it as a secretive practice. Why? Because you're just not gatekeeping it. There is a reason to that. If he gives a beautiful analogy for this. Imagine there is a dark room at night and there is a small lamp that's lit. What happens? The entire room gets lit up.
Correct.
Now, if you take the same lamp outside in the dark, so the darkness swallows this light.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
So if you keep whatever you have experienced to yourself, it's beautiful. But if you take it out in the noisy world outside, it gets interpreted differently, and people might not understand what you're trying to say, or various other things, or people will just start blindly following what you're trying. Yeah. So to keep that meaning intact of your practice, oversharing is not a great way to be as a yoga practitioner. And also what happens is there is something called as a spiritual ego that creeps in, saying that, oh, I have experienced this, I have achieved this, my path is the best, my guru is the best, I am like the best in this path of yoga, you mere mortals.
It becomes an ego.
It becomes an ego, and it's a trap of Maya. Social media itself is a big Maya, and the spiritual ego will fuel that.
So there are actually two reasons why you see me smiling. You know, I'm sure my wife Priya is listening to this and saying, "I told you so." No, but yeah, I mean, you're right. There's this Gadeyala, Nanu Hodare Hodanu.
Nanu hodare hodenu. Correct?
It's just, I think, so beautiful summarizes that, and I can see that oversharing. At times, you might want to share because you're happy with your close ones. But then not everyone might perceive that as that.
Yes. And see, sharing is a wonderful thing because that has happened through social media. But we have something called as the main character syndrome, not just in the field of yoga, but everywhere out there, that you feel that you're the epicenter of the entire universe. The world revolves around you. Not so. And that's again a Maya. That's again an illusion. That's again a trap.
Very true. That's so beautiful. And you spoke about sadhana.
Mm-hmm.
Can you demystify it? What is sadhana?
Practice. Sadhana, what aspect of sadhana you want to learn?
See, I don't know. I keep people mentioning this as sadhana in practice.
Sadhana is a path. Sadhana is the practice that you do in that particular path. Okay. Yes.
So it would apply across
Across.
anything that you.
Like for you, whatever you have achieved, whatever you have gained experience through your sadhana in your particular field, that is
That's
sadhana. See, sadhana, no, I'll tell you the secret behind sadhana is surrender. You just surrender to the path, whatever path you have taken up in life. Just surrender to the path, saying that I have not chosen this path. Yoga didn't choose me. I am not that intelligent. I was chosen to do this. Like I realized this very, very early in life, saying that when we spoke about the change in from being a film editor to being a yoga teacher or educator today, it was for me. If I look at it in hindsight, it was like universe telling me that you did what your ego wanted you to do till now. Now you'll do what you're born to do. So that is sadhana. And in sadhana, you need to be a little gritty. That is when sadhana becomes very, very robust. Otherwise, it's just another.
It's just another thing, yeah. And the path has to, you have to be conscious and aware that you found the path, or the purpose of life, right? You have to have all your senses alert and alive to absorb that. Yes, this is what it is. It doesn't happen otherwise.
When your guna matches with what you do, you have found your purpose. So your guna needs to match the actions that you're doing. So we might go to, as kids, we just go to various classes. We don't become masters in that. Why? Because my guna just didn't match with that.
Correct.
And when that guna matches, if we are even putting in that 20 hours of work in that particular field of whatever work we are doing, we'll not feel tired, we'll not feel fatigued.
True.
Because my guna has matched with that particular action that I'm doing.
I agree. I mean, I can go on shooting. I can shoot for 48 hours and still
Yes.
be fresh. And the days I'm not behind the camera, I am in my negative space.
Yes.
And if you love doing what you're doing.
Love doing what you're doing means that your guna has matched that particular art, that particular field. Yes. That's why you don't feel fatigued. When people study something, and their profession will be something else, which means that you studied that because the world wanted you to study that.
Correct.
So your guna never matched with
Correct.
that particular thing.
And also, Dr. Mansa, there's been this talk about the vagus nerve.
Mm-hmm.
Can we deep dive a bit on that? Because that's something I've been hearing a lot.
Yes.
So, one, I'm not clear as to what it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you can, again, demystify it. And what's the relevance of it?
See, today, about 90 to 95% of all chronic illnesses, whether it is stress, sympathetic overdrive, or metabolic disorders, or insulin resistance, the undercurrent is stress. Okay, and today we also know that stress is not just emotional, but it's physiological.
Correct.
So it can impact our cardiac health, our gut health, our immunity, our sleep. So considering, if we want to understand stress and why it manifests the way it does, we have to enter the autonomic nervous system in our body. Okay. So autonomic nervous system, modern science says that it regulates the involuntary functions in our body. And there are two branches to this. One is the sympathetic nervous system, and another one is the parasympathetic nervous system. So, the sympathetic nervous system, um, all our fight and flight responses are triggered by sympathetic nervous system, and all our healing, restorative responses are triggered by the parasympathetic nervous system. Like the autonomic nervous system, I would say an equivalent of, it can be considered as an equivalent neural pathway or neural network to our subconscious mind. Okay, so why? Because our subconscious mind stores all our karmic impressions, then all our emotions. So, so it's a neural equivalent to our subconscious mind, the autonomic nervous system. So, the vagus nerve is one of the longest nerve which comes under the parasympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
It's a, you can look at it like a healing superhighway. Okay,
Wow.
that runs along from the brain, along the spine. All right. Now, wherever there are various organs that it touches upon, the neural, the vagus nerve
neural
touches
pathway.
upon. Yes, and there is a bi-directional connectivity. That means that, for example, if it connects with our eye, there is sending and then there is receiving.
Correct.
So it connects to various organs in our body. And imagine our yogis of the past, okay, they gave us techniques to tap this particular nerve, to activate our rest response, to calm down our mind.
Wow.
Okay, now that's the greatest thing that, I can tell you, that's a wonderful thing that yoga has given to the modern world. And there are so many techniques that we can use. For example, as simple as if I do the eye movement, okay, and if I do the palming, so which we do it in yoga, or in fact, even the Trataka practice that we do. Trataka is a kriya for it's an eye cleansing kriya.
Okay.
And when we do these eye practices, we are actually activating something called as oculocardiac reflex, which impacts the heart rate. It brings down the heart rate just by doing that eye movement, because that the vagus nerve that connects to the eye, that's activated. It activates. It works on our heart rate.
So you're actually saying that just by doing that exercise of eye movement, I can actually calm my...
You can calm yourself down. And in fact, palming, what we do,
Correct.
post that. Okay. And then there is the diaphragmatic breathing. Okay. That's another way to work on our vagal tone. Okay. Then there is, a good diet can trigger our vagus nerve. All the asanas that we do, in particular twisting, forward bending asanas, will compress and release various aspects, various branches of these vagus nerve in our body. All right.
Wow.
And then there is mudras and bandhas in yoga. Then there is, again, in mudras and bandhas, we can activate the nerve centers in the entire pelvic region. All right. And then there is Om chanting, or any chanting for that matter. Then there is as simple as just being in the nature.
Yeah.
Okay. If not for anything, just smiling.
Smiling.
A heartfelt smile can activate the vagus nerve.
Oh, wow.
So we don't need any medications.
Correct.
That there is a built-in healing system within ourselves, and that is vagus nerve.
Since we were talking about calming of our minds and ways to do it, and today we are in an environment where we are constantly bombarded, the stress levels we spoke about are so high, especially when it comes to social media. We look at the reels, we look at shorts, we look at stories, a lot of us oversharing, right? And there is this FOMO, as we call it, that we're missing out on something, and that adds to the stress. At the same time, there is a lot of misinformation that is going around. And by saying this, I might actually ruffle a few feathers. But there are so many people who say, hey, you know what, you do this course for 400 hours or 500 hours and you can become a teacher. And I can say that it's happening in my field, but at the same time, I'm sure that's happening in yoga as well. And it doesn't work that way.
Yes, of course it doesn't.
Just by attending it's a starting point. Attending a course is a starting point the way I see it. Could be 100 hours, 20 hours, whatever, but it's a starting point. There's a lot more that goes behind it, and I do not subscribe to that thought like you can become a teacher in 500 hours, right? I'm sure it's the case with yoga as well. And what are your thoughts on that?
See, today people, like I've told you, people come only when they have an ailment. Okay, so now at how much can be taught in those 300 or 500 hours of teaching, yoga teacher training? Very little, isn't it? So I feel any of these courses, okay, it's a great start, like you mentioned. Look at, okay, anybody who wants to pursue yoga a little beyond, and if you are looking at doing a teacher training course, look at the teacher training course as not being a teacher tomorrow, just after you finish the course, but being a best student.
Yeah.
Okay, so you should, because the moment you understand the teacher's perspective, whatever little is taught in that particular course, you start correcting yourself. You start aligning your body, aligning your breath. So that is a great starting point. So work on yourself, be the best student so that you can be a best teacher tomorrow.
True, very true. I mean, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, it's disheartening to see, like you said, many of them would have started practicing yoga with the intent of self-healing, but then at some point they say, okay, I've learned this, so now I can teach.
Correct. Absolutely, you're like bang on. You just told it. What most of them who do teacher training today, just because they are able to do a few advanced asanas, they think they can teach.
And it is beyond asanas.
It is beyond asanas. Asanas, I say, is 1/8 of yoga. Even if you take the Ashtanga practice, what Patanjali has made, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. So in that 8-step, 8-limbed method, asana is just one tiny bit. Okay, and we have
amplified that more than the act.
Okay, so that's just 1/8 of yoga, 1/8 of the Ashtanga method of yoga. All right. So if you are practicing yoga, if you are able to do certain asanas, fantastic. If you want to study yoga, look beyond this body. Okay. So it's like when you are teaching yoga, when you're trying to help somebody else align their body, align their mind, align their breath, it's a lot of responsibility.
It is.
It's a huge responsibility that you have on yourself. So one needs to understand that. So it is not just twisting and contorting your body.
Correct.
Yeah, you can't just apply force to make the person achieve that asana. Whether that particular person needs the asana, that one needs to think about. How is that person breathing?
Map the requirement to the practice.
See, what is the purpose of a teacher? Otherwise, you can just go online and just use the apps and do it. The purpose of the teacher today is to understand where you are in that path of sadhana and to personalize the practice for you, saying that, okay, this is how much sleep you get, this is the kind of life you lead, this is the kind of diet you have. Now, what best we can do, okay, to achieve whatever you want to achieve. Now, that personalization needs to happen. What I do, Mayur, is that even though I have a group class, I take that effort because it's my responsibility as a teacher to make sure that each and every person who comes even to a group class, I personalize the practice for them. I'll just tell them, okay, when we are doing a certain practice, I give them a little other variation if that person doesn't need to do that. So that variations, not just in asanas, in pranayama, okay, in meditation practice, there is no one size fits all. Okay, so just because I know a set of particular practices, I can't just dump those practices upon the student who comes to the class. I need to understand, okay, how do I make yoga interesting to this person? Okay, some might like jnana yoga, some might like chanting, okay, some might like breathing techniques, some might like yoga nidra, some might like a very physical asana or a rigorous practice. So I need to understand what that person requires so that I don't waste their time in the path of sadhana.
Not just, I mean, wasting time is one, and if you end up using a wrong or recommending a wrong method or this thing, you are actually causing
more harm than good.
Then good, and you're not actually sorry. And one is the physical aspect of it. Then the other thing is you actually got someone to walk into a door and say, I want to try this. And if it is not applied right, you're pushing them away from something so beautiful. Right? So
it's a huge responsibility.
It's a huge responsibility. It's a huge risk. I hope people are conscious about this and apply the thing to. Look, just coming to the other part of the question, Dr. Manasa, is we spoke about social anxiety and the stress that is causing today, and especially in young adults, more so, right? And I don't know. I mean, not just young adults. I would say even in our age groups in general, it's become such a nuisance. It kind of doesn't give me a very nice feeling. How do you think one should deal with it?
See, today young minds are like totally overwhelmed. All minds are totally overwhelmed, energetically, emotionally, and mentally. And the moment there are certain symptoms, we just start labeling the symptoms as anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, burnout. Why do we do that? Because the modern science sees a human being just as this physical body.
Correct.
Okay, nothing beyond
that.
But in yoga, they say that we have 5 different layers to this human body. We are as much a physical being, as much as we are an energetic being, we are an emotional being, we are a mental being, we are a spiritual being. So any disruption in any of the other layers in our body manifests on our physical body. All right. So the problem is showing up on the body, but it's much deeply rooted than what we can think of. We are energy beings at the end of the day, and how we manage our energy shapes our reality. In particular, how we manage our sexual energy shapes our entire
being,
entire evolution.
Evolution, true.
Yes,
because that's the seed.
Yes.
Of who we are.
Yes. So that sexual energy is a raw expression of life itself. So we need to understand that. And what happens is when kids hit that age of puberty, there is a surge of energy.
Correct.
And of course, that's guided by the hormones like testosterone or estrogen, but it is intense. It's seeking expression.
Correct.
And we do not know how to manage that because we lack guidelines.
Yeah.
as parents, as a society,
As a society.
we lack guidance. So, and also it is considered as a cultural taboo to discuss on how to manage your sexual energy. But in yoga, okay, what happens is we don't suppress the sexual energy. We try to sublimate it. We try to channelize it for a higher purpose. All right. So when, like you rightly said, there is so much peer pressure, there is so much validation seeking in today's young adults, or just anybody for that matter. Okay, so certain choices are very impulsive, and in that, why do we do impulsive choices? Because there is no mindfulness, there is no clarity of thought as to what I want, how I want to be. Because that clarity is not there, we land up with impulsive choices in life. And one of those impulsive choices could also be a casual sex. And we don't realize that the casual sex is not so casual. And today it's normalized.
Correct.
Why? Because that's how we have come up as a society. And we think it is freedom.
It's not.
It is not. There is
So much of energy that's been
exchanged. And there is a word in yogic philosophy called as runanubandha. Runanubandha means, it refers to those subtle energies and karmic bonds that are formed during these interactions, and more so in physical intimacy. And as well, what happens is when there is, even in casual sex, okay, when there is a physical intimacy involved, there are certain hormones that gets released, like oxytocin, vasopressin. Unexpectedly, there is an emotional attachment that's created. Is the person ready to handle that? So whatever your body is trying to remember, what your mind wants to forget, or your body remembers what your mind wants to forget.
Correct.
Okay,
And
so these energetic bonds are not so casual, and it is so intense when you look at it. Every such say uncommitted sexual intimacy, there is a energetic residual, there is an emotional residual that happens. And if the person is unprepared for such emotional connections, if they are not ready, imagine the harm that it can cause. So post a sexual encounter, you see people either empowered or empty within themselves, because they do not know how to handle these energies. They do not know how to handle their own energies. Imagine if there is an exchange and that's new to them. So coming back to what our ancestors told about the first 25 years of our life should be Brahmacharya. Brahmacharya, we just say, okay, it's just...
Now it's become one of the wedding rituals. Right?
Yeah, and we just say, we just translate it to being celibate. But there is a meaning to that. It means that there is a wise conduct of sexual energy. So that, which means that you are conserving your energy and transforming that energy, channelizing that energy, and not wasting that energy. How beautiful is that?
It is.
It's all about managing our own sexual energy. In fact, Kundalini energy that we represent as a 3.5 coiled serpent at the base of the spine is a dormant energy or a potential energy that's in fact the spiritualized form of sexual energy along with life energy. So all the practices of yoga that we do is in fact channelizing this energy and trying to raise ourselves up beyond the chakras means what? I'm going beyond the lower desires towards the higher awareness, higher consciousness. That is all it is. But is casual sex the only reason to mental health disorders? Definitely not.
That is, unfortunately, that is, in today's society, that is a major part.
It is a major part.
And I don't think people understand that.
Yes.
Right? And I absolutely, when you say that exchange of energy, people don't understand that.
Yeah. Why were we doing namaskaram and not shaking hands?
I was just about to say that. Correct. I mean, there's a significance to that, right?
You're protecting your.
You're protecting, and you're also activating your heart chakra, and you're saying, I'm welcoming you with that positive.
Imagine if the palms have this capability.
Correct.
Imagine the rest of the body.
I hope. I'm just hoping that there's going to be more discussion on this.
Yes.
About yoga going beyond the physical aspect of it, and people understand that it is just 1/8 the physical part and the rest of it. Just to follow up with that, any teenager today, if you see, right, it's difficult to get through to them. I mean, our parents complain the same thing. I'm sure we as parents are complaining. But how do we inculcate this habit as part of the everyday routine with the generation?
Habit of?
Yoga, understanding our culture, right? And there is this whole notion, right? It's not cool. And one thing that I absolutely love about the generation today, or at least my kids, that generation, is that you give them a scientific answer. You give them a logical answer. Not even have to go too deep into science. The logical answer they're ready to accept. But how do we... You talk a lot about yogic parenting. So how, if you want to touch on that, and how do we get through that generation?
Like you rightly said, this generation is wonderful, I'm telling you, because they have so much information. All we have to help them is how do you digest that information, how to help them. You need to break it down and say, okay, this is what it is. So for which we as adults need to gain some knowledge. We need to do some contemplation, I would say, as to why a particular aspect of our life is like this, why or what our ancestors were trying to say when certain rituals were designed.
Correct.
So it is not meaningless. There is a meaning to each and everything. Like you mentioned, Brahma Muhurta, waking up, there is a meaning to that. Now we are trying to understand it through scientific evidence. So how did they know? They just knew it through their mere wisdom.
Yeah,
so
wisdom also.
if we try to connect, like you said, that we need to connect these. Science is doing a wonderful job, okay, of connecting our ancient practices. But as adults, we just have to not push them at home, but make them understand why we are doing what we are doing. So I think as parents, all we can do is to sow the seed.
Very true.
And let it sprout when the time is right. So we need to give logical explanations to them. Their minds might not be ready, but when it's ready, the connection will happen.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Dr. Manasa, I'm sure like in any other profession or any other thing, there are a lot of common myths.
Mm-hmm.
What are the most common myths in yoga? And anything that pops up to you every now and then? If you could share a few of those.
That yoga is a physical practice.
Correct. Which we spoke
What
about.
are the myths that you have heard? Let me just think whether it's right or wrong.
unfortunately, one of the things is yoga is highly sexualized, which I do not understand or agree to.
Yes.
Right? It's more spiritual than anything, if not. Right? I mean, this is a physical thing, but then it's also such a beautiful form. Right? And yoga is not for everyone.
Yes, it's for women.
Yeah. Right? I mean, why? That's something
I
that,
really don't understand this. I'll tell you why. Because all the Hatha Yoga texts, if you look at it, the entire tradition was a male dominated tradition, and there is very little bit for a takeaway for a women practitioner. Okay, but look at what happened
happened?
last century and where we are now.
yeah. And so also the other thing is, okay, maybe not a myth, but this is actually a question. Yoga as a tradition has been part of our culture for centuries, right? And at some point, it was kind of erased from our books. But now it's making a comeback.
Yes.
What would you attribute that to? Is it because there's better awareness? Or is it that the West took it from us, productized it, and they're selling it back to us?
You said it. But also, there is a cultural revolution that's happening.
Yeah.
Now, kids want to get back. Their history books are getting revised, rewritten,
Rewritten.
and a lot of things are getting rewritten today.
Correct.
And also, I feel in the world of yoga, in the practice of yoga, what we did in the last century, we took some time to take it forward, undo a little bit of it, and today we have the World Meditation Day, which is a huge statement saying that meditation should be part of your daily routine. So it's not about the physical aspect of yoga anymore. Okay, and it's not about only yogic tools. Yoga should become a part of your life. It's not just that 60-minute mat work that you do. How you show up in life will determine where your sadhana stands.
So if it's just not about yoga, right? I mean, not just about packaging the practice of yoga, but everything has been repackaged and given back to us. I mean, some examples could be what?
Our pranayama practice becoming box breathing. Our fasting become intermittent fasting.
Which used to be Ekadashi.
Ekadashi fasting, Langan. So
Haldi Doodh.
haldi doodh becoming turmeric lattes.
Lattes. Yoga Nidra.
Yoga nidra becoming guided meditation. Yeah.
Cautious breathing. The list can go on, and it's well, in a way, okay. Though we might laugh about it, but in a way, I'm at least glad that it's getting packaged and being repackaged and reintroduced into our this thing, that at least that way it gets initiated with the current generation, or with all of us for that matter. Yeah, but I guess everything is cyclical, and so is life. Dr. Manasa, any last thoughts that you want to leave your viewers with?
See, today society bombards us with constant messages that be happier, be richer, be successful, be prettier. Okay? Basically, what the society is telling you is you are what you achieve and not what you really are. Your self-worth is defined by what you achieve.
Correct.
But yoga slowly tries to cut down on all the noise around you by peeling it one after the other, peeling off all what we call as chitta vrittis in yoga. That process is yoga, where you peel off each thought, each emotion, each trauma, heal yourself day after day, so that one day you realize that the entire process was not about being some extraordinary being, but remembering who we really are.
So beautiful.
That is what we are here for. And the earlier we start the process, the better.
Better. And I mean, that's okay. I don't want to say anything. I think that was such a beautiful way of pausing a discussion on this podcast. Dr. Mansa, thanks a ton for doing this. It's been a fabulous discussion, and every aspect that we spoke today, my takeaway goes beyond yoga. It's
Yes.
about being that being who is spiritual, who is aware, and a way to achieve that inner peace.
Yes.
I think our discussion kind of summarizes with that. Thanks a ton for doing that.
Thank you so much.
I know it's been a different episode from what we had so far. I hope you found it useful, and I hope through this discussion you found your mojo. This is Mayur Channagere signing off from Mojo Talks with Mayur.